The Last Dragon Egg, written by Tane Blackadder. The kingdom of Eldoria was a land of breathtaking beauty and ancient mystery. Its rolling hills stretched endlessly, blanketed in emerald green grass that shimmered under the sun. Dense forests, alive with the whispers of ancient trees, sprawled across the land, their canopies hiding secrets older than memory. Beyond the forests rose towering mountains, their snow-capped peaks piercing the heavens, standing as silent sentinels over the realm. Eldoria was a place where legends were born, where every stream, rock, and glade seemed to hum with the echoes of stories long past. And among those stories, none were more legendary than the dragons that once soared through its skies, their majestic wings casting shadows over the land. But those days were long gone. The dragons, once revered as guardians and symbols of wisdom, had been hunted to extinction. Kings and knights, driven by fear and greed, had waged war against them, seeing their power as a threat rather than a gift. The great beasts were slain, their eggs destroyed, and their kind erased from the world. Or so everyone thought. Deep within the heart of Eldoria's castle, hidden behind layers of enchanted locks and guarded by spells older than the kingdom itself, lay a secret that defied the passage of time. In the deepest chamber of the royal vault, cradled in a nest of silver and gold, rested the last dragon egg. It was a relic of a bygone era, a symbol of a power that no one truly understood. The egg was unlike anything else in the world. Its surface shimmered with an otherworldly light, glowing faintly, as if it held the heartbeat of the world itself. It pulsed rhythmically, a quiet, steady thrum that seemed to echo through the stone walls of the vault. For centuries it had been kept hidden, a treasure too dangerous to reveal, its existence known only to a select few. But secrets, no matter how well guarded, have a way of slipping through the cracks. The egg's light grew brighter with each passing year, as if it sensed the world outside and yearned to be free. And somewhere, in the shadows of the kingdom, forces were stirring. Forces that would soon set in motion a chain of events no one could have foreseen. The last dragon egg was about to awaken, and with it, the fate of Eldoria would change forever. Kael was a man of many talents, though none of them were particularly noble. He was a thief, a scoundrel, and a survivor. He had spent his life slipping through the shadows, stealing from the rich and giving to himself, but even Kael had his limits. He had never broken into the royal vault before. It was said to be impossible, a fool's errand, but Kael was no fool. He was desperate. The job had come from a shadowy figure who promised him enough gold to retire. All he had to do was steal a single item, a glowing egg. Kael didn't ask questions. He didn't care what the egg was or why it was so valuable. He only cared about the gold. The heist was the most dangerous thing Kael had ever attempted. He spent weeks planning, studying the vault's defenses, and bribing guards. When the night finally came, he moved like a ghost, slipping past traps and alarms with practiced ease. He found the egg in a chamber deep within the vault, its soft glow illuminating the room. It was beautiful, almost hypnotic. For a moment, Kael hesitated. Something about the egg felt alive, but he shook off the feeling and grabbed it. The moment he touched the egg, the castle erupted into chaos. Alarms blared, guards shouted, and Kael knew he had to move fast. He fled into the night, the egg clutched tightly to his chest. He didn't stop running until he reached the safety of the forest. In a small, quiet village nestled on the edge of the Eldorian forest, life moved at a slow and steady pace. The villagers were simple folk, their days filled with tending crops, mending fences, and sharing stories by the hearth. Among them lived a young boy named Finn, a curious and kind-hearted soul with a mop of unruly brown hair and eyes that sparkled with wonder. Finn was an orphan raised by his grandmother, a stern but loving woman who had taught him the value of hard work and humility. Though his life was far from easy, Finn found solace in the natural world. The forest, with its towering trees and dappled sunlight, was his sanctuary, a place where he could escape the hardships of his life and lose himself in the beauty of the wild. Finn spent his days exploring the woods, climbing trees, chasing butterflies, and listening to the songs of birds. He knew every trail, every hidden glade, and every babbling brook. The forest was his friend, his confidant, and his refuge. But one day, while wandering deeper into the woods than he had ever dared before, Finn stumbled upon something extraordinary. Beneath a cluster of gnarled roots, half buried in the soft earth, was a glowing object about the size of a melon. It pulsed with a gentle, golden light, as if it were alive. Finn knelt down, his heart pounding with excitement, and reached out to touch it. The surface was warm, almost like the sun had been trapped inside, and it hummed faintly beneath his fingertips. He had never seen anything like it. He thought it must be a magical stone, a treasure hidden by the forest itself. Carefully, he dug it out of the earth, cradling it in his arms. The warmth spread through him, filling him with a strange sense of comfort and belonging. He knew he couldn't leave it behind. Clutching the glowing object tightly, Finn hurried home, his mind racing with questions. He hid it under his bed, away from prying eyes, and spent the evening staring at it, mesmerized by its light. That night, as Finn slept, the egg began to crack. Tiny fissures spread across its surface, and a soft, golden glow spilled into the room. The last dragon egg was awakening, and with it, Finn's life was about to change forever. The creature that emerged from the egg was small, no larger than a house cat, but its presence was nothing short of extraordinary. Its scales shimmered like molten gold, catching the faint moonlight that filtered through the window and scattering it into 1,000 tiny sparks. Its eyes, wide and luminous, were pools of deep, ancient wisdom, as if they held the memories of 1,000 lifetimes. The dragon tilted its head, studying Finn with an intensity that made the boy's breath catch in his throat. Then it let out a soft, melodic chirp, a sound that was both curious and comforting. Finn, still half asleep, blinked in disbelief. Slowly he reached out a trembling hand, his fingers brushing against the dragon's warm, smooth scales. The moment they made contact, the dragon let out a low, rumbling purr of contentment, its body vibrating with a gentle hum. It had imprinted on him, forging a bond that was as unbreakable as it was profound. Finn named the dragon Aurum after its radiant golden color. At first he kept Aurum a secret, hiding him from his grandmother and the rest of the village. He fashioned a small nest out of old blankets and tucked it into the corner of his room where the dragon could sleep safely. But as the days passed, it became clear that Aurum was no ordinary creature. He grew at an astonishing rate, his wings strengthening with each passing week, their delicate membranes stretching and hardening into powerful tools of flight. Tiny bursts of flame, no larger than candle flames at first, began to flicker from his mouth when he sneezed or yawned. Most astonishing of all was Aurum's intelligence. He seemed to understand Finn's every word, responding with chirps, purrs, and even the occasional nod of his head. The bond between them deepened, a silent understanding that needed no words. But Aurum's presence did not go unnoticed. The villagers began to whisper about strange lights flickering in Finn's window at night, about the faint scent of smoke that lingered in the air near his home. Children playing near the forest claimed to have seen a small, golden creature darting through the trees, its wings glinting in the sunlight. Finn did his best to keep Aurum hidden, but he knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. And when it did, their lives would change forever. Kael had always been a man who prided himself on his ability to disappear. He had spent years perfecting the art of slipping through shadows, leaving no trace behind. But this time he had underestimated the length to which the kingdom's hunters and mercenaries would go. The reward for the egg was no ordinary bounty. It was a king's ransom, enough gold to buy a fleet of ships or a small kingdom. The hunters were relentless, their determination fueled by greed, and the promise of glory. They tracked Kael through dense forests, across rushing rivers, and over jagged mountains, their pursuit unyielding. Though Kael managed to evade them time and time again, the pressure became too much. Exhausted and cornered, he made a desperate decision. He hid the egg in the hollow of an ancient tree deep within the Eldorian forest, hoping to return for it once the hunters had given up. But fate had other plans. Finn found it first. When the hunters finally caught up to Kael, they showed no mercy. They tortured him for days, demanding to know the location of the egg. Broken and desperate, Kael told them everything about the egg, the forest, and the boy who had taken it. The hunters descended on Finn's village like a storm, their arrival marked by the thunder of hooves and the glint of steel. They tore through the woods, their shouts echoing through the trees as they searched for the dragon. Finn tried to protect Aurum, but he was just a boy, no match for the armed and armored hunters. He fought with everything he had, his small fists swinging, and his voice shouting defiantly, but it was no use. The hunters captured Aurum, chaining him with heavy iron links and dragging him away. Finn watched in horror, his heart shattering as Aurum let out a mournful cry, his golden eyes locked on Finn until he was out of sight. Left behind in the wreckage of his home, Finn felt a fire ignite within him, a burning mix of heartbreak and fury. He vowed then and there that he would get Aurum back, no matter the cost. The bond between them was unbreakable, and Finn would move heaven and earth to honor it. Aurum was taken to the royal palace, a sprawling fortress of cold stone and glittering opulence that stood as a monument to the king's power. There he was locked in a gilded cage, its bars crafted from gold and silver, but no less a prison for their beauty. The king, a cruel and paranoid man with a hunger for control, saw Aurum not as a living being, but as a weapon, a tool to cement his dominance over the kingdom. He ordered his court mages to study the dragon, to unravel the secrets of his power and bend him to their will. Day after day they subjected Aurum to spells and experiments, trying to break his spirit and force him into submission. But Aurum would not be broken. He refused to eat the food they offered, turning his head away with a defiant snarl. He ignored their commands, his golden eyes blazing with a fire that no spell could extinguish. Instead, he spent his days staring out of his cage, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon where the forest lay. His thoughts were consumed by Finn, the boy who had shown him kindness and love. The bond between them was unbreakable, a connection that transcended distance and time, and it gave Aurum the strength to endure. Meanwhile, Finn was consumed by a storm of guilt and anger. He blamed himself for Aurum's capture, replaying the moment the hunters had torn the dragon away in his mind over and over. But guilt soon gave way to determination. Finn vowed to rescue Aurum, no matter the cost. He began training with a single-minded focus, honing his body and mind for the challenges ahead. He practiced with a wooden sword, his hands blistering and his muscles aching, but he refused to give up. He studied maps of the kingdom, memorizing every road and trail that led to the palace. And he sought out allies, knowing he couldn't do it alone. In his quest, Finn found help in unexpected places. There was Garrick, a disgraced knight who had once served the king, but now sought redemption. His skills with a blade were unmatched, and his knowledge of the palace's defenses proved invaluable. Then there was Lyra, a rogue mage who had fled the king's court after refusing to use her magic for his cruel schemes. Her knowledge of spells and enchantments was crucial in countering the king's mages. And perhaps most surprisingly, there was Kael, the thief, haunted by guilt over his role in Aurum's capture, sought Finn out and offered his help. Though Finn was wary at first, he saw the sincerity in Kael's eyes and accepted his aid. Together, this unlikely band of allies began to plot their daring rescue, united by a common goal: to free Aurum and restore the bond between dragon and boy. Years passed, and with them, Finn grew from a boy into a young man. His once scrawny frame filled out with muscle, his hands calloused from hours of training, and his eyes hardened with the resolve of someone who had faced loss and refused to be defeated. Aurum, too, had grown. No longer the small, fragile creature that had hatched in Finn's room. He was now a magnificent dragon, his golden scales gleaming like the sun and his wings spanning the length of a small house. Yet, despite the physical distance between them, the bond between Finn and Aurum never wavered. Finn could feel Aurum's presence in his heart, a constant, comforting hum that reminded him of what he had lost and what he was fighting to reclaim. It was as if a thread of light connected them, invisible but unbreakable, guiding Finn through the darkest of times. One moonless night, Finn and his allies launched their daring raid on the palace. The plan was risky, bordering on suicidal, but Finn's determination left no room for doubt. Garrick led the charge, his sword flashing as he cut through the palace guards with precision. Lyra's magic flared, countering the spells of the king's mages and disabling the traps that littered their path. Kael, ever the shadow, slipped through the chaos, unlocking doors and creating distractions. Finn fought with a ferocity born of desperation, his every step bringing him closer to Aurum. When Finn finally reached the chamber where Aurum was held, his heart ached at the sight. The dragon was chained, his once gleaming scales dulled, and his body weakened from years of captivity. Yet, despite his condition, Aurum's spirit remained unbroken. His golden eyes burned with defiance, and when he saw Finn, a low, rumbling growl of recognition escaped his throat. The moment Finn's hand touched the bars of the cage, a surge of energy erupted between them. Aurum let out a deafening roar, a sound that shook the very foundations of the palace. The chains binding him shattered, and the cage exploded in a burst of golden light, as if the sun itself had been unleashed. Finn and Aurum were reunited at last. The dragon nuzzled Finn with his massive head, a gesture of affection that brought tears to the young man's eyes. The bond between them flared brighter than ever, a radiant force that filled the room with warmth and light. In that moment, Finn knew they were unstoppable. Together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by a bond that no cage, no king, and no force in the world could ever break. With Aurum by his side, Finn became a force to be reckoned with, a beacon of hope in a kingdom shrouded by the king's tyranny. Together they waged a campaign of liberation, traveling from village to village, freeing those who had suffered under the king's oppressive rule. Aurum's presence was awe-inspiring, his golden scales gleaming like a second sun as he soared through the skies. His flames, once small and flickering, now roared with the intensity of a wildfire, incinerating the king's forces and lighting the way for those who dared to rise against him. Finn, armed with courage and a sword that seemed to glow with the same golden light as Aurum's scales, led the charge on the ground, his determination unshakable. The people of Eldoria began to rally behind them, their whispers of hope growing into a chorus of defiance. Finn and Aurum became legends, their names spoken with reverence around campfires and in hushed prayers. They were no longer just a boy and his dragon. They were symbols of freedom, a testament to the power of unity and resilience. But their greatest challenge was yet to come. The king, desperate to maintain his grip on power, turned to dark magic, delving into forbidden rituals that twisted the very fabric of reality. From the depths of his despair and hatred, he summoned a creature of shadow and flame, a monstrous dragon unlike anything Finn had ever seen. Its scales were black as the void, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and its eyes burned with a malevolent fire that seemed to pierce the soul. This shadow dragon was a manifestation of the king's cruelty, a beast born of fear and destruction. The final battle was fierce, a clash of light and darkness that shook the earth and split the sky. Finn and Aurum fought with everything they had, their bond giving them strength even as the shadow dragon's power threatened to overwhelm them. The air crackled with energy, flames and shadows colliding in a deadly dance. Just as the shadow dragon lunged for Finn, its jaws wide and dripping with malice, Aurum intercepted it. The two dragons collided in a blinding explosion of light and fire, their roars echoing like thunder. When the smoke cleared, the shadow dragon was gone, its form disintegrating into ash. Aurum stood victorious, his golden scales scorched but unbroken, his eyes filled with a quiet triumph. Finn rushed to his side, placing a hand on Aurum's massive head. The bond between them pulsed with warmth, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. Together they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. The king's reign of terror was over, and a new era of hope had begun. Finn and Aurum had not only saved the kingdom, they had become its heroes, their legacy etched into the hearts of the people forever. With the king defeated and the kingdom freed, Finn and Aurum became heroes. Tales of their bravery spread far and wide, inspiring generations. Finn was no longer just a boy from the forest. He was a legend, a symbol of hope and courage. Aurum was no longer just a dragon. He was a protector, a guardian of the realm. They spent the rest of their lives together, exploring the world and righting wrongs. Their bond never faded, a testament to the power of loyalty and love. And though they eventually passed into legend, their story lived on, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's always light. And so, the last dragon egg became the beginning of a new era, one where dragons and humans could live in harmony, united by the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dragon. Thank you for listening. Subscribe and click the notification bell so as not to miss the next story.